in the morning. Yesterday we had Brazil win Croatia, barely. So everybody is on a hangover from the World Cup game yesterday. I'm not, okay, I'm fine. But I need my cup of coffee anyway. So that's briefly me,
Okay.
Larissa. Hi.
In a moment, Krista, I'm going to ask you to repeat exactly the same thing.
Oh, please, Simon.
So we're now live on air. So we're going to record this for everybody who's not here. So my name is Simon Ensor, and we're in Clermont-Ferrand in France. And we are going to be talking about connecting teachers in different countries and connecting students. So I'm going to ask the people here to present themselves very briefly, and then we'll ask them to talk about how they see connecting students from their perspective. So, on the left, we have Chris.
Yes, okay. Shall I just a couple of minutes or so?
Yep. Brief
Can you hear me?
introduction, Chris.
Yep. Right, okay, my name's Chris Allen. I'm Senior Lecturer in English and English Didactics at Linnaeus University in Sweden, southeastern Sweden. I've been a teacher now David has joined us. I'm very glad to my colleague David Richardson has joined us. So there's two of us from Sweden here, David and myself. We're both into teacher training. We both like ICT very much. We work a lot with Adobe Connect, actually. That's what we do. I'll leave David to talk about himself and what he does there. We have in Kalmar, well, our unit is divided into two campuses. In Kalmar, we have approximately 10 to 15 student teachers, I think, in the autumn that could possibly participate in some form of telecollaboration. As I say, these are teachers of English combining English with usually another humanities subject. So any form of exchange, any form of practicing or exchanging ideas, especially about teacher training, with one of the other or several of you in your institutions would be very interesting. So that's a little bit about my background. I've met Simon face-to-face. I've met Teresa face-to-face. And Machin has been here to Sweden on an Erasmus. Everybody else, as I say, I've just seen you on screen.
Thank you very much, Chris. Perhaps pass over to Teresa for historical reasons, because Teresa
makes me feel really old. Thanks for that.
with me were at the start of this tangle.
Thanks. Yes. Confused actually is one of the many emotions that I've felt throughout. However, that's not unusual in my day-to-day life. So yes, as Chris said, I've met Chris face-to-face. I've met Simon face-to-face. Simon and I have worked together for the past, coming up for 3 years, I think now. On virtual exchanges. So my name's Teresa McKinnon. I'm Principal Teaching Fellow at the Language Centre at the University of Warwick. We're currently undergoing restructuring, where we will be as part of the School of Modern Languages at Warwick. When we come out the other side of summer, we should be reborn as part of that. Which explains some of my confusion, I think. I'm responsible for the e-learning development at the Language Centre and the technical infrastructure for that. I'm actually a French teacher by trade and have been for the past 30 years. So I still do some teaching, but most of my time is taken up with e-learning systems, and over the last 5 years or so, technologies for voice over the internet, and in particular telecollaboration. So I've been involved in the Intent project. I've been involved the EWC course is part of one of the course case studies in that report, and I've been starting to research in that area more actively over the past few years. Oh gosh, David. Sorry about your thunderstorm. There's some sort of pathetic fallacy going on here. I don't know.
Thank you very much, Teresa.
Okay.
I'm going to pass on to Paul.
What I didn't mention, Simon, which I should do, is that I'm not directly involved in teacher training at all. I support a team of teachers who are institution-wide language program tutors. I do have connections to some people who are in what was the Institute of Education, which is also in the process of being reborn as 2 different units. So although I know people who teach teachers, and UK teacher training is completely in disarray really at the moment, although the government is now starting to make, just today, some announcements about the importance of having trained teachers. Fortunately, that is one particular turmoil that I don't get involved in that much.
Thank you, Teresa. Paul. Hello, Paul.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Teresa.
So, a brief introduction to everybody, Paul.
Yeah, well, sorry I came in the middle of that. My name is Paul Lidden, and I'm in Japan. My institute is called Kanda University of International Studies, and it's an undergraduate school. I teach undergraduates. I do not do teacher education, although I have in the past. I've been doing this kind of work, that is work on starting out in call but in telecollaboration since, well, I'm going to say 2003. I've done a number of different projects trying to set up exchanges. I started out doing stuff for the hearing impaired because of the video aspect, and we were doing asynchronous exchanges because I was working with how to say, these are I don't want to say dying languages, but that's essentially what they were in Southwest United States. So endangered languages, and so yeah, I mean, but I've taught French, I've taught Japanese, now I teach English. So I've made connections in different places and tried to arrange exchanges among learners of different groups. I'm principally interested in less commonly taught languages like Japanese, but now I'm teaching English, and I'm happy to be a part of this exchange.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Yep.
Mara?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, Rita.
Yes, great.
Hello.
Hello.
You're diagonal.
I am. I was upside down in the beginning, but now I'm diagonal. Let's see what happens at the end. So
You look like you're going into space.
that might be a good idea, yes. It's Friday the 13th. Space is my direction. Here we go. Here we go. Do you want to join me, anyone?
You ready for takeoff?
Exactly. Yes. So I am Marita, and at the moment I'm working at the University of Oulu. I'm trying to finish my PhD on language learning. Leena is my supervisor. In the autumn, I'm going to return to my normal work, which is teaching English to teenagers at the lower level of a secondary education, as we call it here. That means that the pupils are about 13, 14, 15-year-olds, old students or pupils. And the reason why I'm interested in this is that our school is very limited in terms of technology. We have now got equipment to our school, but the teachers, including me, are very beginners in using it in everyday teaching in a meaningful way. And I would like to get some ideas how to deal with that.
Thank you, Marita. Lina?
Right, I'm Leena Kuure, and I work at the University of Oulu in northern Finland. And I am actually not a teacher trainer, but I'm involved with teacher training indirectly because I work in the English department, and I suppose most of our students become teachers. And the students, they take their bachelor's and master's degrees here, but they take also pedagogic studies in the neighboring faculty, the Faculty of Education. And still we are expected to offer the students also courses that support their language teacher career. So I'm the one who is interested, and I also have a background in language teaching. Originally a teacher of English and Swedish. And I have all sorts of courses where the students are somehow dealing with new technologies or envisioning new kinds of futures for language teaching and learning. And I have noticed that it is, and also Marita and me, we have been doing research together too on this area. It seems to be very difficult for the students to get rid of their baggage in the traditional ways of teaching. So that has also been noticed elsewhere in research. We have all the technologies available, but people don't necessarily see the affordances and the relevance from the point of view of their work. So that's why that kind of theme is always present in my courses. I try to get people to think about this in broader terms, and we have very often projects. On one particular course, for instance, our students organize school projects for children, and we've had some international projects organized by our students. And on some other courses, we don't necessarily do such practical work, but somehow explore the topics otherwise. So I have different kinds of courses and contact points where I would really love to join Clavier work in one way or another. Okay.
Thank you very much. David? Is the thunderstorm finished?
No, it's still on. But on the other, and also I didn't adjust my audio and video until I came into this. So I guess that's why my camera's still a bit funny. First of all, this is the very first time I've been in a Google Hangout. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
Fine.
And you'll just have to assume that the rest of my face looks something like the top of my head, you know. Yeah, Paul. Sorry, Simon who's speaking. Yeah, what can I tell you?
Can you speak briefly about your work and your context and your interest in this?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've been sort of brought into this by my colleague Chris. We work in real life in the same corridor. We've got the thunderstorm is still going on, but it seems to be moving away. Yeah. What I've been using ICT in various forms of English teaching for quite a long time now. I started my first web-based course in 1994, so you know I've seen quite a lot through there. What I do nowadays in terms of teacher training and working with teachers is that I'm involved with a lot of in-service training courses for working teachers, which are distributed across both Sweden and the world. I always have you know, expatriate Swedes on my courses as well, and I also have some inputs into campus-based courses, but not very many. Apart from that, as you can see from the discussion forum, I've been using Second Life for quite a long time as well. I was involved in a Norwegian project called the Kimimo Islands project back in 2007, and we created our own island in Second Life, and I've been using it for live courses since 2008. So that's the type of thing that I'm doing. I'm just last autumn I started a course for university teachers who need to deliver their subjects in English, which largely uses Second Life as the place of study. And if anybody would like to come along and see what's going on, the one course starts at the beginning of September, and the other one starts in the middle of October, and you're very welcome to drop in. Apart from that, I'm using Adobe Connect, web pages, podcasts, you know, all the kind of toys that we usually play with. Okay?
Thank you very much. I had a quick question, David, of what Second Life is.
It's a virtual world. So you go in there as an avatar, and you move around. You can fly. You can talk. The actual environment can look like anything you like. It depends how much work you put into creating it. And if you look through the Teresa mentioned something called Edunation, which is an environment created by a bunch of people, a lot of who are language teachers, specifically for teaching languages. The one that we use, Kimimo Island, is a more general teaching environment, but right next door to us we've got another island called Avalon, which has been created also specifically for teaching languages. So it's got things like hotel receptions and parades of shops and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, you've been to Avalon, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. What I'd like to do now is ask a question to all of you, and put your hand up if you want to answer. So the first question is, what are the opportunities for us connecting students and teachers in this way that we're doing at the moment? So what are the opportunities from your perspective? Who would like to start?
May I start?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello again. I'm Clarissa. Let me briefly introduce myself. As I said before, I work at a binational center in Brasilia. We are in the business of teaching English. We have a large population of students. We have about 14,000 students with us. I oversee the upper intermediate level course for teenagers. That's about 2,000 kids I have to plan for. I work with teacher training, and we are an institution who's very much interested in bringing meaningful use of technology into the classroom. We like to engage, we stimulate the engagement of our teachers in academic development, and we have a very strong, active ed tech team in our institution with Carla Arena. You guys some of you might know her from Twitter and the blogosphere. So some of the opportunities I see, I think, is in terms of making meaningful connections, real world, meeting real people, and giving these kids, the teenagers that study with us, and our teachers, we have student teachers, We have a strong teacher development course also. So I see lots of opportunity in the connections in the sense that we could learn from other experiences of teacher training. We could exchange ideas on meaningful use of technology for in the classroom with teenagers, for example, teaching the language. I know that Marita talked about her project working with teenagers and all, so I'd be very much interested in maybe engaging groups of teenagers, you know, in conversation. We have iPads in our schools. We are a total of 5 schools in Brasilia. And we are in the process of learning how to make sense of and how to bring all of this, the iPad in the classroom for meaningful purposes, keeping it student-centered, keeping it within the best pedagogical practices, I think. And I think that, you know, not using technology just for the sake of its own thing, I think, which is not what technology should be about. I think it should be about the human connections. So that's just a little bit, just to get the ball rolling, okay, since I'm the Brazilian in the room, okay? Anyway, it's great to be here, and I look forward to connecting with all of you, and I see lots of potential, so just some ideas. What do you guys think?
Hi, this is Marita speaking now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Clarissa, thank you for saying all that. It sounds like we have a project starting right now. I would like to add the international aspect to that as well, because cultural differences are always interesting as well, in my opinion. I'm not sure if the young children or teenagers are very interested in cultural issues, but I am, so could we add that to our learning target list as well? And,
definitely, oh yeah.
And I'm going to go back to school at the end of August. I don't know when you are having your students available for any testing or anything, but we could actually practice and start planning something for iPads, for example.
That's great. Sounds great. And you know, I could bring in Carla, as I said, who's our expert. And she is brilliant. She would have so much to share with us. And I learned so much from her. So it would be an honor, I think. It would be great. Let's do that.
Let's do that, yes.
Yeah. We were just wrapping up the semester now. So our students are now off to their breaks. And they'll be back in a month or so.
Okay. So we have time to plan a little bit before that.
We do,
yes,
yeah.
Great.
That's great. That is great. Awesome.
Fantastic.
Well, that looks good. That looks good. Well, I suppose because I've been in this sort of network and this sort of activity for a little while, as has Paul and David as well, I'm very much aware that the people who engage in these sorts of networks, sorry, David, I keep looking at your image in the, you know, at the bottom row here where everybody's on webcam and expecting for your face to move, but it's not going to, is it? It's a photo.
I know, it's so funny.
No, it isn't.
I'll just have to do that bit in my head. Sorry, I can't get my head around that. I'm trying to process all these things at the same time. Sorry, as I was saying, I'm very aware that there are networks within circles and Venn diagrams with overlaps going on, and often the same people popping up in these overlaps. So it's very probable that I've come across David at some point somewhere in Second Life. I think we've met once in a Blackboard Collaborate session as well. But I'm aware that there is a great big long tail of language educator teachers for whom a lot of this is magic, and is that they really necessarily even can begin to think about embarking on. So maybe those sorts of concerns that I have tie up a little bit with currently something we're doing in the UK, which is to put together a funding request for languages to HEFKI. Look, it's called our oh, sorry, let's see if I come back. It's called a catalyst bid. And a part of that catalyst bid, we're saying we need to pull some sort of portal together that actually enables people who have never embarked on this sort of thing to discover it, particularly on the telecollaboration front, and that connects and pulls together some of these currently quite small overlaps and widens them out. So I'm thinking particularly of, I mentioned a few names at the start, the Unicollaboration perhaps, the Unicollaboration portal. I don't know how many of you are aware of that. In the Intent project I mentioned at the beginning, which was an EU bid. Various networks which we may have come across, the Virtual Roundtable, which is language learning specific, Global Classroom, which is more primary than anything else and really nothing to do with language teaching, but everything to do with connecting primary classrooms and young people together. There's loads we can learn from these, and just to be aware of them so that actually it would help people discover these things rather than to see the range and decide where they feel their synergies are and where they would be best putting their time. Because there's absolutely no doubt, having worked for many years now with teachers and technology, there is a significant investment of time that has to be made. You're very lucky, by the sounds of it, Clarissa, in your support that you've got in Brasilia, but in some institutions that support is really either not there or not particularly engaged in the challenges of international telecollaboration. And more engaged with the day-to-day, keeping everybody's email working. So we face all those sorts of headaches, and being a bit of a pragmatist, nothing makes me happier than to see a project, as we did with EWC, to get it off the ground and get it running to a point where I feel I can now move off and do something else, because that project has developed a certain life that will be able to grow and thrive. I always find myself in this situation, faced with all these wonderful faces and fascinating people, thinking I would love to interact with all of you. I know I don't have time to do that, but I hope Clavier would give me the opportunity to keep up with what's going on and to share and to learn from where you're going and what you're doing, and maybe showcasing that, pulling that back, because that could be one of the roles really within this Catalyst platform that we're looking at, of how we show young people that language skills are being used for real world problems and real world connections, for exploring and finding out about what it's like to live as part of a global community rather than a national perspective, what it's like to be a global citizen. And I've rabbited on for far too long. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you,
it's
Teresa.
really exciting, Simon. But Simon has been my constant catalyst. He's been the constant grain of sand that sort of, it pushes me to the next thing. And helps me think about what I can do next usefully.
Thank you very
lovely
much.
To meet you all.
Paul,
Yeah.
you're a bit in the dark.
Yeah. Yeah. The light's kind of bright.
Okay.
Let me see what I can do here.
Simon.
I'd just like to say one or two words and then ask you a question.
Okay.
Okay. So, Paul, in Japan, has worked with Roger and with Daniel, but you also worked indirectly with Pam, who is over here. So if you say hi, Pam, she's over there. And she had some students who were really interested in Japan, so they became part of this exchange that we did last year, Pam? Yep. What I'd like you to perhaps talk about is the difficulty that we have, not from the point of view of the technical aspect, but of actually getting people to meet up and to communicate. Because I know you've had a number of experiences which can help us reflect on that. This is not really so much a question of technology, it's something else.
Yeah, right. Well, I think, first of all, what I was going to say that was more directed toward the first question before you just asked that one. I mean, because I'm happy to talk about the exchange that we tried last fall and what was good and not so good about it. But I think in talking about the opportunities, I kind of see like 3 different layers to this. And one of them is, especially in my context, is making communication real. I mean, students, they study English grammar and all the boring stuff for them, and they want to be able to use English, but they don't have opportunities to do it. And I think this is true. I mean, back in my experience in the United States, people not having the opportunity to use the language, there's no real reason to be learning it if there's nothing to do with it. And I think that this is a way that we can connect classrooms, and I think that it's something that we do. But that is a lot of work, and I think that this platform allows us as teachers to be able to problem shoot and to talk about what it is that we can do besides just, I mean, we can connect classrooms, but then that just, so then basically we're in charge of everything. We orchestrate everything, we organize everything, and then at the end of our project or whatever, it's over, it's done. And I think so what we really need to be looking at is the ways to not only connect classrooms, but to be able to get those interactions, those collaborations to go beyond what it is that we do in the classroom. And so, and that involves helping learners to understand the affordances of the different technologies and to help learners to develop autonomy with respect to the technologies. And so now going to your question, your more specific one, Simon, is that you know, what we did is we had a variety of different ways of connecting, really, introduced through a Google Doc. So students, they created profiles, and the thing is, though, that when there's no purpose to it, then students, I mean, they would like to be able to communicate, but I think that they need some kind of, they need a pretext for it of some sort. Now, one of my students came to me recently, and he's now actually picked up the exchange that he never did while we were in class, but he kept it. But he keeps in contact with me, and he said, "Oh yes, well, now I'm talking with this person from the Clermont group." So I was glad to see that happened. But normally we don't see that. I'm delighted that it happened. I'd like to put something in place so that could happen more. And I think that's really what we have to do is to get something going that's not just project assignments and those kinds of things, but something that kind of takes on a life of its own. And I think that that's something that's what's really interesting to me in this context, because there's so many people from different places and different contexts with different kinds of ideas about what might work and what might not work. And I think it's important in this kind of forum to be able to exchange those ideas and to try to come up with a better solution than any one of us could come up with on his or her own.
I'm not sure if my mic's back on again now.
I hear you.
Oh, great. Okay, it must be. Thanks, Paul. I thought that was the last time I spoke to you. I remember walking away thinking, this is somebody I really want to talk to again. This is somebody with some great insight. And it was really good to hear those sorts of things being said, because again, this is the sort of thing we've been raising with Catalyst, and saying, look, we need ways of incentivizing engagement in telecollaborative activity, normalizing, and my focus has been more on normalizing staff use of telecollaboration, because already I see my own kids who are in their 20s using telecollaborative software on their phones and this sort of thing. They will use a Skype or a Hangout or whatever to chat to people. So that's been less of a worry for me. But actually helping as well, helping the learners, the students, to understand that this isn't just a fun tool for checking with your girlfriend whether she's going out tonight. It can be somewhere you can learn, and somewhere particularly you can learn languages, and you can learn about cultures, and you can experience the reality of using another language and communicating with another culture. So yeah, that's very much high on my wish list. I know
you mentioned,
sorry.
You mentioned something about the incentivizing, and I remember last time we talked, you said something about the badges, and I thought, I wasn't really familiar with that before, and I just wonder about if you've been working on that still, because I'm very interested in that idea.
It's interesting. It's coming along. I have a book chapter planned with Miriam Hawke from the Open University around badging for language/IT skills, and just this last few weeks I've been working in the Association for Learning Technology course called OCTEL. I put a quick link earlier on in the chat, and Martin Hawksey, who's a very skilled member of that community, has implemented badging. I had a strange sort of relationship when I first started hearing about badges with it, because I felt this is all, extrinsically motivated, ticking boxes. But actually, having experienced it over the last 5 weeks, I've found that possibly, on the days when I've got lots and lots to do, it's been that nagging voice at the back of my head. I haven't got that webinar badge yet, and I want that I want the full set. I want the 6-week full set. That whole Pokemon mentality overtook me, and it's actually been that. So this is badging little micro skills. It's not, it's no big deal. These are not major qualifications. They're little micro skills that mean that I've watched all 6 of the webinars, I've produced a blog post on tasks A and B or whatever, but they have been the little incentives that have kept me coming back for the course. Chris says that there is a link for the badging. I've just today actually picked up my Mozilla backpack and collected all my badges. I'll see if I can find the link to that and share it. I'm still working out how to then embed it into my personal blog space, but I'll send you a link. Because at the moment, badges, when they're implemented properly, have proper issuers, and when you click on them, you can follow from that. I'll take one and share one. You can follow from that what I had to do to earn the badge, and who was the issuer, and how it was accredited. Sometimes they're peer, sometimes they're automatic. So if you've done the webinar, you're given the code in the webinar, you can then apply it, etc. So it can be that Mozilla was behind all of this. It's a really neat little way of collecting evidence of your engagement. Let me just see if I can find my backpack, and I'll share a link in the text.
Can I pop in a moment?
Please do.
Right. What I'd like to ask is, Marito was talking about the question of teachers and learners with an idea of traditional classroom, and it demands a great change of imagination in terms of the learning space. Could you perhaps say a few words for our teachers who are here about that difficulty, because this morning we had a presentation of ICT and technology, and it was presented as something which was, you needed long training, you needed specific skills, etc., etc. So if we're going to make this fly, it must be straightforward.
For some tools, it does take time to get used to them. It does take time to learn how to use them. Has this group got a specific circle? You just see I've got Clavier, but I'm not 100% sure that I've got everybody in this. So if I'm sharing this with perhaps just Simon and Marcin, perhaps you could
I will
share
the circle with all of you
people
after.
as well. Right, I'll just send that off. Sorry, so there are two ways of looking at this, and I've certainly found professionally that I run into this all the time. You say, look, we're going to implement this technology, everybody's going to use it in 2 months' time, but prior to that you can all have to do X, Y, and Z. And it's very control driven, and perhaps has a list of skills that have to be ticked off, and you have to then demonstrate that you've acquired those skills. For those of us who are educationalists, I think there's probably a collective shudder going through our minds, the very thought that somebody else can define what you need and then can tell you to tick the list in order to acquire it. So personally, the approach that I've taken has not been the training, it's been the experiential aspect and approach to learning how to use the technology. So although we do have drop-in sessions, what we try to do is to get people to teach each other and to support each other. So we adopt what's called a community of practice model, where people ipsatively think about the sorts of activity they would like to do within their classes, and having thought about whether it's best synchronous or asynchronous, the sort of the nature of the activity they want to do, and then they look at how they're going to achieve that, and they self-direct. So I'm talking hertagogy rather than directed learning. Yay! I have a friend. That's great. That's good. So yeah, discovery learning. We make mistakes. It can take ages. You can reach points where you think, I'm never going to get this, and then you tweet that, and somebody says, oh, I can show you. There's a video here. Go and have a look. But it's all about taking on the responsibility for I need to know how to work this, and then I need the time to reflect and think about it, and perhaps have a moan and a glass of wine, and then come back to it the next day. So it's that sort of approach. I think if you go to a typical IT services department and they want you to use Skype, for example, for telecollaboration, they'll say, "Ooh, ever so complicated." It is ever so complicated. The technology is very complicated, but you don't want to be able to fix Skype. You don't want to be able to go into the back end and use it. You want to use it as a tool. Mm-hmm. The first thing we did when we brought in overhead projectors was not to put people in a classroom, unscrew them, and show them all the bits, and show them a map of how to put them back together again. We just said, press this button, look behind you before you start speaking, and off you go. So that's the approach, really. Please, David, jump in.
No, I think Marita was going to speak.
Okay, I'll say a couple of words. I really like the idea of discovery learning, especially in terms when we are learning to use technology in language learning. And I think that there are many ways that need to be rethought in language learning, because our young learners at least seem to be very good at using technology, and they are using technology. In fact, they are using languages too, not only in classrooms, but in their free time with their friends, with their own networks and so on. So at the moment, it's a little bit difficult for me to understand why we should limit, if we should limit. I don't think we should limit learning inside the walls of the classroom and test some minor details of language. So, David, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting discussion, this, and I've been sort of fitting things in from our perspective here in a Swedish university environment as well. Chris could definitely say some interesting things about local networks that we have of teachers that he's been building up, but what I've been working with a lot is Swedish teachers working in classrooms all over Sweden, usually at the younger age range, say between 7 and 12. And one of the things that's swept Sweden in a very sort of underhand, not very well noticed way is the advent of iPads into classrooms. And what's happened is both that vast numbers of iPads have been bought, but also schools have installed very, very high quality Wi-Fi networks. So all over the place, and these are the people that I'm teaching as well. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. You get a lot of basically untrained in ICT teachers who've suddenly got this fantastic possibility in front of them, and they're doing lots of very, very interesting things with them. I put a link up to a Facebook group about using iPads in education. Whenever anybody posts something in a Scandinavian language, I try and give a summary in English into that. And a lot of the contributors are from Scandinavian countries. It's Sweden, Denmark, and Greenland, actually, three major places at the moment. But one thing that has been happening as well is that all sorts of informal support networks are starting to be built up. And there's a tremendous amount of interest that can be got from there. Now, very specifically, in September, I'm going to be starting a new group. I'm doing a module about using ICT to teach English. And one of the questions which always comes up is e-twinning. And these, because they've got access to the technology in terms of iPads, which are connected up to the internet, and they've got enough of them to have, for the whole class to have one. What they would definitely be interested in would be linking up with your classes, your students in real time, and doing things together. And one of the suggestions that I've given to lots and lots of teachers, which I think a lot of them have started doing, is, for example, get the kids in two respective schools, in two respective countries, to take a photograph, shall we say, every hour through their day, and then put a blog together where they put these photos up, and then have a live session where they talk about them. So that, let's say, Brazilian people look at a Swedish breakfast table and say, what are you having for breakfast? You know, what is field milk? What is that stuff on the table? And so forth and so on. I've already had lots of teachers who do stuff like going out on nature walks with their kids in Sweden. The kids in Sweden taking photographs of plants, animals, mushrooms, finding out what they're called in English and writing about them, and then connecting up, say, with a class in France. Now, where I started thinking about this was this question about what training do teachers need, and I think we've had quite a lot of experience now in Sweden of training ordinary everyday teachers to start using this technology to good effect, and I'm sure that Chris and I could contribute quite a lot of specific stuff about that. Okay, that was what I was going to say. Yeah.
That's fascinating, David. It's interesting. I don't know. Did you go to the Leon conference in February?
No, I don't do conferences very much.
Oh, right. Okay. No. I just wondered whether you were there and I'd missed the opportunity.
No. The last one I went to was Eurocall in Gothenburg.
Oh, right. Okay.
Chris and I were there.
Well, I was there virtually that time, I'm afraid. I was only on Twitter. So the Leon conference happened in February. It was the first first conference on telecollaboration in higher education, and the proceedings of that conference should be published fairly soon. I know everything's been sent off, and I think we're probably in the editorial bit at the moment. But one of the conclusions of the work that was done there by Marie-Noëlle Lamy from the Open University was that proxy interaction is very successful. So interaction by proxy, rather than saying, okay, you're going to connect with this person, you're going to tell them X number of details about yourself, you do exactly what David has just described there. You share photos that then initiate conversations. You share perhaps video clips or music, and you try and make these discussions arise out of informal interaction. I tried a little exercise yesterday. I was doing a teacher training event. I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday afternoon. I was doing a teacher training event at work, and I wanted to make a sort of physical version of what happens in social networking. So I gave them each a whiteboard pen, and they each had a whiteboard, and I just asked them on the whiteboard to write a few key words down of things that they would be comfortable people knowing about them. So that maybe their hobbies, their interests, if they had pets, the languages they spoke. So off we went in silence, as all good teachers do, doing what the teacher told us to do, quietly writing very neatly. Well, one guy drew his networks and the things he wanted to communicate with us, which was really interesting, but just pointed to the fact that the teacher hadn't made very clear exactly what the nature of the task was. So that was my fault. But the interesting thing was once we'd finished putting our information up there, little conversations arose from that. And to me, it was a really strong physical reminder of what happens when you join Twitter, or what happens when you become a member of Facebook. You start to see things, and then you think, oh, that person's out there. I didn't know they were there. Or that was interesting, and it starts the conversation. And somehow we thought with telecollaboration that in the first instance, because we can talk to each other, we must talk to something meaningful. And actually, most meaningful conversations come after we've perhaps exchanged something or looked at something together. So I hope there'll be some really useful outcomes from that. But I did put something in the text chat as well, where I am particularly concerned about, from a technical perspective, attaching too much emphasis on one or two particular technologies. There are lots of technologies out there. They all have, good points and bad points. The power of the iPad is A, the interface, and B, the fact you've got it in your hand. And we found, even people who are particularly technophobic connect through an iPad because it's in my hands. But you'll have that same effect with a phone or with a tablet device that has a nice interface, a clear interface. And I think it's really important that we don't, as budgets get called on, we don't put all our eggs in one basket and give one technology company the rights to everything.
Can I come in,
that's
please?
Just my hat on. Do.
Okay. I think here in the room we're going to be winding up in 5 minutes. So what I'd like to do is perhaps go round the people in the room and see if they have questions, because this is something which can be ongoing. Just a second. No, they have no questions for the moment. Right. So perhaps we can wind it up with 2 words about where do you want to go next with Clavier.
Shall I start? Shall I start? This is Chris. Yeah. Can you hear me all? Yep.
We
Okay.
can.
Just very briefly, I'd like to sort of, I'm sort of from teacher training perspective. I'd like to get in touch with somebody and one of the partners here, and perhaps exchange, perhaps get in touch with another group of teachers in another country, student teachers that is, and exchange ideas about something like, for example, formative and summative assessment, or attitudes in Europe to the CEFA, or something concrete that we can use to talk about groups of young teachers and to get some kind of different perspectives on teacher training in English.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was a bit of a conversation stopper. But,
Well, I'll just reply to Chris then. It's Clarissa, Chris. Hi.
Hi.
Just heard you. I'd be interested in that connection. I think we are actually in the process now of implementing a formative type of assessment system with our adult course. And lots of our teachers are, struggling with it. And, you mentioned assessment. That's why I remember the experience. But anyway, we could definitely stay in touch. And as I mentioned before, we have a pretty strong teacher development course. So we have student teachers here always. And it would be nice to maybe put something together and connect groups of teachers and discuss pertinent issues and topics. We should definitely keep in touch. Let's see if we can.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Can I suggest something? Well, we've had various projects with the students, and one particular way of working has been through so-called concept work, which means that people have been trying to envision what sort of technologies we may have in 5 or 10 years' time, and then how that will probably change our communication practices, and maybe the roles of the teachers and learners, and how it breaks their borderlines between the classrooms and everyday life. And then people have been trying to figure out what the primary needs would be for planning such learning for such a new environment. And then the students have been creating concepts, well, sort of ideas of as concrete as possible, of different kinds of pedagogic approaches, or maybe even technology-based applications. And they were, through a certain kind of procedure, they have finally created a concept of language learning, which they have then been presented to the others, and that has been some sort of a tool in considering the nature of learning, considering the nature of teaching, and so on. So it's worked very well in our smaller groups, but I just thought that it might even work in a huge group, something like that. I like problem-based kind of project-based approaches. So I'm open to anything that's based on that.
Marita or Paul?
Paul?
Paper,
Good
rock, and
ideas.
scissors? Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that for me, what I'm really interested in at this point is trying to get an exchange that's going to be self-sustaining. I want to talk about. I'd like to have an exchange, and I'd like to work seriously on how that exchange could continue beyond what it is that we actually do in the confines of the course. Mm-hmm.
Chris, did Katsuko get in touch with you?
No.
Sorry, Paul. I meant Paul.
No.
Sorry, Chris.
That's right. You got me then.
No, it was all around Japanese.
Yeah, no, I'm afraid to say yes, she did, and I'm afraid to say that I haven't responded to her, and I need to do that. So I'm very sorry about that. When you talk to her, just
Well,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Should I let her know that you're still interested in?
Yes, I am.
Because I know she is still looking for partners.
Yeah, I'm not blowing her off. Please tell her that. When you speak to her.
I'll do just that. Thanks.
Okay.
That would be good. I know she's had huge problems because the biggest problem really often with the Japanese is the not a problem with the Japanese, but it's a problem with the English. It's the time. It's the timing. It's the problem of overlaps of term times and the like.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, Marita, you can't go any farther than that. This is it.
Yeah. This is completely selfish, so I apologise in advance. But in a few months, in a few weeks' time, actually, I'm going to be presenting at Eurocall talking about Clavier and really the historic of Clavier, rather than what we've been talking about today, which is all about where we're going to go next. So I'm particularly interested in having an online interview with Marcin and with Simon to answer a few questions. So just to let you know, Simon and Marcin, that I've left a link to that classroom, and if you're going to be available, perhaps after this session at some point, if you want to have a few minutes to take a break and then meet up there, I'd be very grateful, because I really want to capture some of the learning that we've done through this process in order to feed that in, and perhaps one of the things I can do that might help others is that I'll be presenting that at Eurocall, and there will be people there from Eurocall's teacher training SIG, so hopefully they will also hear what you're saying, and perhaps we can add you as new connections to that SIG if you're not already connected to it. Get things moving through that as well.
Okay, I think that the teachers have to go, so the ones here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be talking about this at length over the next few years. And I'd like to thank all of you, because now we're coming up to the end of our time, so it's now 3 o'clock, for coming at all these different times. And we will be in contact next week to take this further on. So thank you very much from everybody here in France, and Marcin in France too. And we'll be catching up with you very quickly.
Bye, everyone.
Merci.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you all. Let's keep in touch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Ciao, ciao.
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 Okay, I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Paul, see you.
All right. See you, Simon.
See you, Marita.
See you.
See you, Clarissa.
Bye, Simon.
See you, Lena.
Bye, Clarissa.
Bye, Lena. Nice to meet you. Bye. Bye, Marina. Let's keep in touch.
Yes.